Hello, hello, hello. How are we
Hello, young
doing?
man. I'm okay. How the devil are you?
I'm doing very well. It's been quite a week, hasn't it?
Yeah. How's your week been?
I think you know how my week's been. My week's been
Anything new to announce?
no, not really. No big changes in life. Just as well. There we go. So for those who are for those who are listening who may not know, I had a bit of a big announcement this week, and the big announcement is the fact that I will be joining the BSF team as the global technical and marketing manager for rodenticides for BSF. So with that, I'll be looking for taking those products around the world, for innovating new products, for doing all kinds of things. But I start that on June the 1st. But just to let everyone know that Wade Environmental and IPMC, they're still going to exist. Ellen, who has been my protege, is going to now become the head of operations for Wade Environmental. And Oliver Madge and Lulu Gunter are going to be the two who are the other two legs of the stool who have already been running IPM Central. They're still going to be there to deliver the training. So everything that Wade Environmental and IPMC have been doing will continue. And let's be fair, it'll probably be done a little bit better with me not getting underfoot as well. So there we go. There's my big news. Have you done anything nearly as exciting as that this week?
Oh, no. Unsurprisingly, BASF have not knocked on my door and offered me a global role within their organization. I don't know why, because I would appear to be the prime candidate, but no, it hasn't happened today.
Give it a couple of weeks, or give it probably to June 3rd or maybe the 5th. They'll realise that they've made a
Yeah, I'm,
terrible,
I'm
terrible
lucky
mistake.
they sell me rodenticide, never mind give us a job.
Well, there we go. But no, enough about that. Oh, thank you very much, Jasmine. Enough about that. Go on. What have you been doing this week? More bees?
Uh,
More bees? It's always bees with you. You love the bees.
yeah, no, it's getting into that state. So we have a extraction to do tomorrow in a chimney in Corbridge. We went to have a look at a bee colony in a plant hire place during the week, which will have to come out in the near future. A lot more drains. Got a very, very, very interesting job through from the solicitors. Disrepair claim, a property suffering with rats, and there's all sorts going on with
That's
that.
that's an interesting one because of course we interviewed Julie
Yeah.
probably what about 6 months ago now? Yeah, it must be.
So
So she was one of the very early ones. Yes, we should get her
this
back
kind
on
of
because that was a very interesting one.
yeah, this kind of came through Julie actually, but not directly. Julie asked us to go down and sit on a panel at one of the solicitors convention things. Julie's a lovely lady. She'll absolutely try to give you pushes in the right direction. And a long story short, a local firm of solicitors down the road got in touch with us, and I did one for them back end of last year, and then this one's come through, but it'll turn into 3 houses and all this sort of jazz, and it'll be a real interesting one. Trying to get to the bottom of it. They're looking at criminal as well as civil in this as well, which is interesting.
Really? Oh, because
Mm.
because most of the ones we've done before, when we spoke to Julie, it was all privately brought claims, wasn't it? So it was all civil cases.
Yeah, no,
Um, so how bad has it got to actually hit the criminal level with that?
I don't know. I don't know if it's criminal in so much as like people are going to court, or whether it just goes through the criminal court. But I think, don't quote us on this, because I'll get an answer for everybody. My understanding is that if it goes through the civil courts, the only thing that you can ask for is money, is compensation. If you want an apology, if you want something put right, you want to get bare your soul, go to church. The only thing you can go for in civil court is money. It is money redress. But if they take it through the criminal court, my understanding is that the criminal court can find them guilty and put conditions on. You will do this. You will fix that. You will. So that they're looking at
Okay.
a two-pronged approach on it. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I will find out and I will see what comes of it. But it's right up my street, that sort of stuff. I know it's not for everyone. People say it is ambulance chasing, but it's right up my street. I don't think anyone should have to live with rats. And I think if you are going to rent someone a home that is rat infested, you are in the wrong, end of. And I'm happy to
Yeah.
support them.
No, I 100% agree, and I think it's something that actually more pest managers need to be aware of, because it's something that it's basically down at the core of what pest management is, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
helping people live in a pest-free environment, to live away from the distress, the diseases, and the damages that pests cause. And if we can use the law to our advantage, for once, then there we go. But talking of the law, that was the other
Mm.
interesting thing that came out this week, wasn't it?
I've been doing a little bit of reading up on it, and a lot of it's gonna not even come into 99% of pest controllers' days. But there's some real interesting points in this glue trap act of 2022, isn't it? Is it the glue act?
The
It's
Glue Trap (brackets Offences) Act
yeah, yeah,
2022. Yeah.
yeah.
And from that, it was enacted in 2022, and it's taken them now almost 2 years, or a little over two. Well, yeah, 2 years for them to actually develop license. And when it first came out, it said quite clearly in it, glue traps may not be used by anyone unless used by a professional under a license. However, this license is yet to be established, and it's taken them 2 years to actually develop the license. And we do have some statements from our trade associations. So our trade associations were aware that we were going to be doing this podcast tonight, and actually gave us a statement, a rebuttal that they will be taking to press. But we'll get to that when we get to that in a bit. Shall we? I'll tell you what. Shall we bring our guest on? See, see
Absolutely.
who he is and what he's doing, but also what he thinks about this as well. So very quickly, I set a challenge to anyone who was on my socials to actually figure out what the etymology of Darran's surname is. So did anyone actually guess it while we bring him on tonight? Chuck it out in the comments now if you guessed what it is. But otherwise, without further ado, we have Darran from 1ENV. Hi, Darran. How you
Hello.
doing?
Well, mate. How are you doing? You okay?
Doing very good. It's nice to see you.
Good.
Sat there in your beautiful home. I didn't realise you played the piano, but
Well, absolutely. Yes. It's yeah. As you can see, imposed. I wish one
the
day, maybe.
the illusion instantly shattered there.
If
But
I
yeah, how you
manage to
doing?
sell my entire stock of glue boards in the next month and a half, then I might be able to buy a house like this. But that's another conversation for later on.
It's another conversation. But to be fair, the price of glue boards, it's going to be less a grand piano. It's going to be one of those little Casio keyboards, isn't it?
Without a bit. Absolutely.
But with that, go on. Tell it. Many people listening to this, and many people listening to this, will instantly know who one of you is, and all of them, I suspect, will have had a conversation with you either at the regionals or at the road shows or at Pestex or Pestec. But for those who have been living underneath a rock, who are you? Who are you? Who even is Darran?
Do you want me to talk about my surname first, or should we
Go
just
on then.
move?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me about your surname, because that is actually quite. I love this little story. So tell us about your surname.
From what I gather, it's French, and Lebeter in French is the beast. So for anyone who watches The Chase, you've got the beast, whose name is or surname is Lebet, and that's where it's derived from. So the wife was most happy when. Well, she is most happy when I call her Emma the Beast. So yes, my wife is Emma. We have a little girl, Isla, who's 5, going on 16. A little ginger pocket rocket, bless her. Fighting tonsillitis at the moment as well, incidentally. And
Just out of interest, the ginger, does that come from your
yes,
wife's
me.
side?
Yes, no, it comes from
It
me.
is
Thank
you.
you for pointing that out. Yes.
Well, it's okay. Well, to be fair, it was lucky that you went bald then, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the home side. I've also got 2 children from a previous relationship as well, who are 16 and 13, so quite a large age spread. So that's that's a little bit about me. What else do you want to know? Come on, talk to me. You know me well, Alex, on a personal and a professional level. So
I don't. So tell us what makes you tick outside of pest control.
acting and singing. So
Give us a song Give us a song.
There's
Come
a rat
on.
in my kitchen. I can't. Oh,
Oh,
come
come
on! I
on.
can't do that, can I? I'll tell you what. If I have a little bit more on my Coke Zero, then I'll see how that goes. But
Get a little bit
I,
dizzy off the bubbles.
I'm not good at much, but what am I? Nearly 41 now. I've been acting for 35 years and singing for 30, and that's kind of a hobby on the side as well that I'm lucky enough to also get paid a little bit for, which is quite nice. So I do comedy dining experiences such as Fawlty Towers, previously Only Fools and Horses, Vicar of Dibley, Blackadder, James Bond, all that type of thing. So yeah,
And
a bit of
of
some
course,
others do have them.
the crowd favourite, which you actually have performed in front of a pest management group before. It's Mrs. Brown's Boys. Is that
Mrs.
right?
Brown's Boys, absolutely, yes. I was invited to a quite a large company's conference and presented a few awards dressed as Mrs. Brown, which was a bit of a shock and a surprise to them. But
Did you give
yeah,
them any
that's
forewarning that you were going to come dressed up, or did you just say yes? I'll give the awards, and then just sort of like walked in?
only the MD and technical director knew, and the rest of the room of 90 plus people didn't have a clue. And that became abundantly clear within 3 seconds of me walking in. As you can imagine, yes, it was an interesting experience. But I might give you a couple of impressions later. Maybe we'll see how it goes.
So
I
if
think you are
anybody wants to hear him sing, put it in the comments because then he can't do it, can he? So
Oh,
just a quick aside. I'm deadly serious. My granddad was a trained classical singer, and he was a miner. And when the miners' strikes were on, he paid to feed his family through singing in social clubs and stuff. He could sing like a canary. And I love singing, but I'm absolutely cloth-lugged. Everybody don't sing but agree. So when someone can sing, I love to hear them sing. No pressure.
I'm also not sure that you should refer to an ex-miner as being able to sing like a canary. I think is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It depends at what point in the canary's life, doesn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. Absolutely. So go on. You do sing and dance. Is that every weekend? I mean, what else do you do for a bit of fun then?
Not a huge amount, to be honest with you. I mean, I enjoy. I'm not a keen reader. I don't like reading. But I do like watching documentaries. Fascinated with, cosmology and the universe and World War II. It's quite a wide, diverse range of things I'm interested in. World War I, World War II, sort of late modern history. Studied that through college. Still play my football somehow or another. I like to keep myself busy. I don't really like sitting down doing nothing. I hate holidays. It's such a waste of time and money. Skiing being the prime example. Why people spend 10 grand to climb up a hill and slide down it again, I just don't understand, to be honest. And to go somewhere where it's freezing cold and come back with sunburn, I just don't understand it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I never knew you were so passionately against skiing. This is quite something, isn't it?
I used to do roller skating and skateboarding. I imagine I'd be quite good at it, and I imagine I would enjoy it until I got into the bar afterwards, and someone said to me that'll be £25 for half a pint of Peroni, and I'd lose my rag, I think, to be honest with you. I'm not cut out for holidays. If I open the fridge door and the light comes on, I get sunburnt. So, I have rather sensitive skin. But I'd just like to keep myself busy, really. Football, cycling, cycle to and from work most days. Just that's it, really. Whatever's going.
You say that's it. That was a huge list of things. That was amazing.
I don't know if there's a compliment or a kick in the nuts, but for some reason, you remind me massively of Drew Pritchard.
Drew Pritchard.
He was so if anyone's watching this, he was like a salvage hunter. He went for he would go into World War II places and buy like fucking knickknacks and shit like that, and he'd stick them in the shop and then he'd sell them and he'd make money on it. I can't remember what the program was called. Stand by. You remind me. You're going to have to go and watch a program called.
It's going to be something like Salvage Hunters, isn't it? But there we go. So while he's googling your doppelganger, tell us a little bit about how you came from 35 years of Amdram to
Excuse
pest
me,
management.
excuse me. I get paid, so technically
Okay,
I'm
so
not an
Dram
amateur.
Dram.
Thank you. Yes.
So if you get paid for it, of course, have you been registered with the Actors Guild?
You
Oh
don't
no.
need to do any of that kind of rubbish, really. To be honest with you, it's yeah, it helps. If you want to go into it as a profession, then you need something like that. But for me, it's a hobby that I'm lucky enough to get a couple of quid for. Never. I know a lot of actors that are professional actors, and they've always got the to be honest with you, wondering when the next job's coming. And the fact is I can pick it up and drop it whenever I want to, and it means that I can do it when I want to. So I enjoy that. I enjoy that side of here we are. Oh yeah, I'll tell you what, he's a peaky blind that he is, isn't he? Look at that.
Does look like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I'm
be
gonna have to
fair,
check him out.
Well, for me, it's more with those headphones. You look like that guy on, in Star Wars on The Empire Strikes Back. The one as they get into the Cloud City and he stood behind everyone, and everyone who watches Star Wars will know exactly who I'm talking about there.
You've
Anyone who
completely
doesn't,
lost me because
yeah,
I've
there we
never
go.
watched them.
Yeah.
I've never watched a single one of them. So.
Oh,
Oh no, that's not something to admit out loud.
Oh, it certainly is. Yeah. Just not my cup of tea, to be honest. Not a sci-fi fan, really. But then I love cosmology. But I do love it, like the Alien films. That there are certain things I do like, but for some reason, I don't know. I think George Lucas is sick as well to bring 3 films out and then wait 30 years to bring the next lot out when probably half of his first audience are dead. I think that's harsh, to be honest. No one knows how it began.
So they don't remember the plot line. You can do anything you like.
Sick joke, but there we are. I think I'm going to lose customers post after this. I think I'm going to lose.
I think you're probably going to get some. To be fair, it's me who they're just going to look at and be like, "Who's that science nerd?" Literally wearing a science T-shirt to a podcast on pest control. Get off your horse. So you're about to say. So how did you get from drama to pest management? That doesn't seem like a logical step.
No, I sort of went through school, college. When I got to college, I'd had paper rounds and things like that. Then I just got a job in a call centre, RBS call centre. So Royal Bank of Scotland, who at the time were part of, it was just after they bought NatWest. They looked after Tesco credit cards, RBS Advantage, Coots, all of the rest of it. I just got a job in the call centre, and then when I finished college, thought I'm just going to earn some money. There I'll go full time and sort of go and travel the world or do whatever, or see if I wanted to go university, anything like that. And then that year became 2, which became 3, and then I became a team leader, then an ops manager, and before you know it, I've been there 8 years. And I was doing okay for myself, but it was just mundane. But there's 5-side football pitch on the back of the call centre out of which that I worked, and playing a game of football snapped my shin in half. So I decided to take a little bit of sick pay, handed my notice in, went to an agency, the following Lun at the time when it was Essex Environmental Supplies. 2 days later started, and that was the 7th of August 2007, and here I am now.
That whole story, that whole transition of Essex to 1EMV is quite a story, isn't it? And a lot of folks listening at the moment. So, and I've heard a couple of them refer them to themselves as stewardship pesties, which is pest controllers who have actually, they've never known anything other than life post stewardship. And anyone who's come into this industry post stewardship, of course, will have missed the history of Essex Environmental, which was a huge brand, a huge deal. It was known far and wide, and actually, it was quite something, wasn't it? And I won't steal your thunder telling us the story, but tell us how Essex became 1EMV, because it's not. It didn't exactly.
It didn't become 1EMV. No, so I mean, Richard first started out of around about 95, 96, which I think the stars, Jupiter and Uranus, aligned, because it was around about the same time that a certain company called Pelgar started up, if memory serves. And this is third hand. Richard would be able to tell the story a lot better than me, I'm sure. But it just so happened that you had someone there making boxes and someone there making bait, and what maybe might have appeared to have been, a fairly set kind of industry. And then these two chaps came along and joint forces, and then the business sort of accelerated. It was strong. Then obviously Essex, because it started as Essex Rodent Control, then Essex Environmental, then deregionalised from the County Essex to Essex Environmental. The brand was the letters S and X, and there's still that brand is around today as well. And then obviously there was the acquisition there. Richard sort of did his time there and kind of left a good strong team behind, and for one reason and another, people sought new ventures. And you kind of fast forward a year or two, and Richard's back there, and there was an opportunity. So One E&V was founded in 2014, I believe. I joined later that year, James and a few other people, and we were able to, I think, learn a lot. We wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for Essex or SX, absolutely. And built up a lot of relationships, a lot of knowledge, we're able to sort of really kick on. And I think we're doing all right. We're doing okay.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been quite
massively,
quite a move. And it was
personally, there's been a lot of evolution for me there. So I started off largely just pick the phone up and order stuff, take orders and key it through, and then sort of I've dabbled a bit on the international side and the key account side, and the purchasing. Actually managed the One E&V warehouse for about a year as well, and it's kind of seen it in most parts of the company, and now my big thing is obviously heading up the sales, but also the technical training side of things, and that's what I really enjoy at the moment, is just trying to get the best possible training delivery. So if you know any decent trainers, Alex, let me know. And
well, I do have a list.
You do.
I have to basically go back to that. You talk about the original Essex warehouse, and I was probably one of the few people quite lucky to actually see Essex when it was still in its original home. And it wasn't a massive building, was it? It wasn't a massive warehouse. And if anyone who's had a look through the One E&V catalogue, which is similar in many respects to the Essex catalogue, it's huge, a very big, very comprehensive catalogue. And the building that it came out of, all of this stuff came out of, was not that big. And I remember the first time, it was like Aladdin's cave. I went in there was racks on racks over racks. You went round the corner, there was still sort of like 2 blow mold pressing machines between the bins for going out and the rest of it. And you had to sort of turn sideways to pass each other down the corridor. It was incredible how much stuff you guys managed to fit into such a tiny space and still have a sales counter at the same time.
And I mean, it was actually when I first joined Richard in 2007. That was 2 weeks after he'd actually moved into that facility, because there'd been a fire at his previous one. I wasn't, and when I sort of started working there, but way back when, I mean, half the stock was fire damaged, and all of the insurance things were going through. But Richard takes a huge amount of pride, as he should, in having a significant fire, to the point. I mean, he used to volunteer for the fire service. Richard did, so he was actually tipped off by some of his former colleagues that it was going on, and there was multiple fire engines there. But the next day they were trading. That kind of says a lot, really, to be honest with you. But it kind of forced the move into that site, and then it's a bit like when you move house, I guess, isn't it? It was similar to when we moved into our new facility sort of 18 months ago. You look at a place and think, oh, so much space. It's good, and then you give it 3 months and it's full and you need more space. But yeah, the old unit was a little bit like a Brazilian sort of things being built on top of things outside of it. Do you know what I mean? Like the shanty kind of sort of setup. But yeah, it's given us space to breathe now, which is really good in the new facility. And you've been there, haven't you, Alex? So you've wandered around and got the manufacturing side and the training side, and the in-house kind of production side and the office suite and everything else going on. So yeah, it's really good for us, really good.
I'll tell you, it's to do it. You do it a little disservice because, of course, you're being very humble about it. But Richard managed to build an entire, from the ground up. It wasn't the fact that you moved. A little bit of it is a pre-existing building where you have your blow mold machines in there, and then the rest of it is a whole warehouse, like hangar warehouse, built from the ground up, specifically for it. And that flew up, didn't it? I think I came to visit you about 3 or 4 times when we were discussing bait stars and training and bits and bobs like that. And turned up one day and it was a pile of rubbish. Turned up 2 months later and it was a whole load of scaffolding up there, and then come back 3-4 months later, got a roof on it and the stuff moving in. It was phenomenal with that,
and it was actually behind schedule as well. It was about 3 or 4 months behind schedule, but it's building contractors, bless them, they do like an early finish, and I'm allowed to say that because my father-in-law's a builder, so yeah, bless them, but they do like a pint at 11 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, but there we are, or Friday morning, sorry, but yeah, no, it's good.
Sorry, can I just ask what's the relationship between you two then? Because I know, Alex, you're closely linked with 1AM, aren't you? Because I don't know any of this, and I'm sure some of our people don't. How does that work?
Probably started as Darran said, as more of a relation between Richard Lund, the owner of Essex and now 1EMV. Sorry, Essex, then he sold Essex and then set up 1EMV. But Dad and Richard had a very good relation from the offset. And I don't think you guys will mind saying that Pelgar actually helped you guys develop your own brand and your own range, which is the Brigand and the Rascal ranges from very early on. And that relationship just grew. And with that, I just kind of got to know a lot of the Essex and 1EMV guys very well over the years, just either, and initially by proxy, but then by association and spending time together at the trade shows and the after show events. And then more latterly in the last couple of years, actually, through the consultancy, doing training for these guys and the rest of it. And so it's that. And it's one of those relationships that I think, we've known each other for, donkeys now, really.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of referrals have gone each way as well. And I know in your position you have to, if apolitical is the right way of putting it, do you know what I mean? You have to be everyone's friend, do you know what I mean? But but I think we are mates as well, do you know what I mean? And we've often sort of sat up discussing the origins of the universe until the wee small hours and such like. But as a company, certainly over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, the training we deliver, I want to be delivered by people that don't directly work for 1EMV. So then you get kind of that objectivity through it. Do you know what I mean? Is something I'm keen to do, and I like to. If people are looking for site visits or they're looking for information, advice, entomological question, whatever it may be, I like to go to people that actually know their way around it. And, so I think I've probably sent a fair few people your way, and the same with people like Paul as well, and we're kind of very closely aligned to fantastically groomed beard. So there we are.
So I don't know who that last one is, but I wish to meet him, Paul. he's shaved off now. He's not got his little beard anymore. That's very, very upsetting. And in fact, Paul's prodigy is doing your safe use for identifier with Sam. He's coming on very well now, isn't he?
He's a really nice guy as well, Sam. He's yeah, it's kind of sort of helping both out. Do you know what I mean? He's come from Rentokil, then I think went through Roadkill. Now he's starting his kind of training journey, and you know, the safe use of rodenticides is a really good course to kind of deliver. I think. I mean, I must have delivered that thing 100 times, to be honest with you, but I think it's really good thing to deliver. So it's kind of, again, reciprocal kind of help both ways, really. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so you've worked with a load, and God, so you've there's a couple of others of the 1EMV team that I think need a bit of a shout out as well.
No, they don't. They're not here. I am. You know, they're sat at home watching Emmerdale, so you know, whatever, or Star Wars maybe. But
they should all be in the comments, shouldn't they? But no, there we go. So with that, I mean, let's take a little meander off the piste before we get back to talking about 1EMV and what it brings to the team. And let's actually talk a little bit about, because this was originally this came up this week, this glue boards thing, and when I spoke to you on the phone, you said either flippantly or seriously that you had some things to say about this, and we are taking that as ad verbatim. So to start off with, I mean, what are your views on this Glue Trap Offences Act that have come out so far? And for any kind of disclaimer, for legal reasons or whatever, Richard, if you're listening, these are all Darran's views and may not reflect the views of the company. So there we go.
You'll be pleased to know that I am going to, again, I'm sorry to use it second time, but I will be apolitical with regards to this, because the first thing I have to appreciate, and has been abundantly clear with this new framework, is that for every person that, I'm not going to say likes a glue board, but sees the need and the use for one, there are several people that quite happily would see them never used ever again. And I think that you know, that's always been it's always been a divisive tool. But for me personally, I think that it is a tool that that it will be a shame to lose. I think that in the right hands, it can be a very effective tool, quick eradication, very quickly if used responsibly, correctly, etc., following obviously thorough risk assessments and such like. But the new framework, or the potential framework as it's laid out, is a ban all but in name. You know, I never heard personally of anyone laying a glue board on an aeroplane. It may have happened, but I've not heard of it in nudging 20 years. Critical infrastructure, absolutely, there's a need there, but I can make an argument that a local supermarket that serves 50,000 people on a busy week could be seen as rather critical infrastructure for that community. They have a responsibility to make sure that what they're selling, you know, is not risking public health, or posing a risk to public health. Restaurants, etc., kitchens in schools, doctors' surgeries, you name it. There are places where these things, I think, could be considered. You know, so I have, again, what we didn't want to do was, as a company, as 1EMV, was go out and say, you know, oh, you know, everyone moan about it, because there'll be some people that are quite happy and applauding this, you know, and what have you. But all I would say is if it's a part of your toolkit that you do use and would like to see a future in, we've got a very small window of opportunity to potentially push back through the BPCA, probably through the MPTA, other sort of trade associations, and I would urge people to do so. I think when the original subject came up a couple of years ago, and I believe the BPCA and MPTA came out and asked for people to feedback, it was a very limited response, incredibly limited response, not vast in any way, shape or form. It is difficult because I think what government would like is specific scenarios, but you know, Fred Bloggs supermarket down the road are not going to want their name put on a success. Do you know what I mean? There's that aspect to it. Yeah, I do think this is going to be very challenging. Yes, what also doesn't help is the fact that they've you know, if this does roll out, we've literally got sort of a month, 2.5 months to get our ship in order. That was ship with a P. And yeah, it's hasn't really left much space. They've been sat on the previous consultation with the BPCA was in June of last year, so they've been sat on it for 11 months doing nothing. They pushed it back from April to July, and then with at the 11th hour, have just gone, oh, that'll do, and thrown it out. Is my opinion. But
yeah. I mean, so just basically to put a bit of context to this, and you're absolutely right, and I agree with a lot of what you said. They are a tool. They're a very divisive tool. Some people love them, some people hate them, some people just couldn't give two hoots about them because they've never used them and never plan on using them. And I think a large part of what was wrong, heavily wrong with glue traps, and what actually kickstarted a lot of this, and then was lost in the communication all the way down, it was the misunderstanding of what a glue trap actually is and what it's for. I don't mean people misunderstand what the physical thing is, but a glue trap is a tool for restraint. It's not a tool for control. It's not a tool to kill the animal. It's literally a tool designed to hold that animal in place to allow you to safely and humanely dispatch it without it running around on the floor over pallets or through food. And so with that, just as a little bit of I'm going to read some stuff, and it's going to, a little bit ad verbatim here, but this was some of the news that was put out through all of the various, MPTA, BPCA, PestMag, and the rest of it. So we have to now use, the Glue Trap Offences Act says it's illegal to use, not to sell, but to use glue traps, unless you are a trained professional operating under a license. Now, that license has taken almost 2 years to come out. And now when it has finally come out, this is kind of the problem, because as a lot of people say, it looks like a ban in all intents and purposes, just through the back door. So the things you have to be able to do, so you have to complete, so point number A1 is you have to complete both of the following courses, and to prove evidence that you have completed these courses with your application. So you have to be at least level 2 award in pest management qualified, and you need to have undertaken the Kill Germ Glue Trap online training module 2024 version. That with a caveat that other companies are welcome to develop their own training materials, and Natural England will consider this as a demonstration of the applicant's knowledge and competency. And number 2, you need to be able to supply a reference from another professional pest controller that vouches for your competency, which is a little bit awkward, considering that the majority of the pest control market is in fact small businesses, micro businesses, less than 5 people. Let's be fair, 90%, well, actually I know for a fact 70% of the people listening to this will be sole traders and in partnerships. But after you've overcome those caveats, you also then need to apply for the license itself, and there are 2 types of license. There's a class license, which, as we discussed before, the class license only covers a very limited range of situations. Inside aircraft, specifically mentioned, unsure why. Hospital surgery operating rooms, again, very specific. And then critical infrastructure sites where the equipment is at imminent risk of fire or failure. Again, there's no discussion as to, well, there is discussion, but it's one of those things that I think is going to be an incredibly limited number of sites that you're going to be able to claim are critical infrastructure. And then, of course, if you're using a glue trap anywhere other than that, then what you need to do is apply for an individual license, which will be done on a case-by-case basis. So you need to write to Natural England, say, I have this site, I wish to use a glue board. Here you go. Please use. But with that, there is some stunning, and I mean absolutely stunning, and I'm sure Sean is going to chip in here as an actual pest manager and tell us how unfeasible these would be or not. But a class license, a new registration, is £180. Class license report of action. So at each site that the license is used is going to be £230 per site that it's used on. And then a re-registration or annual re-registration fee of £121. Or alternatively, if you're just going to use glue boards on one site for an acute thing, an individual license will cost £535. Additional charges based on an hourly rate of £121 will be payable if further information is needed. So that's in short, some of the license conditions, and you can see there, Sean's put up something a little bit more from that. There's a lot of other bits that fall into this license. There's a lot of other bits and bobs that go to it, but they were the three key points, realistically: the training, the reference, and then the paying for a license.
I
So,
think as
Sean,
well.
oh,
Sorry, just to jump in, something else
mm,
that even if the class and the specific license were, let's say, loosened, broadened ever so slightly further down there, quite rightly, arguably, apolitical. Boards can only be late for 6 hours,
yeah,
and the person has to be on site from the moment they're laid until they are lifted, unless you have a sensor or something to inform you that something's been caught, and you then have a 2-hour window with which to go back and remove them. So yeah, that's another key thing which I think should be, is I think it's reasonable. I actually remember, Alex, a couple of years, maybe a year, 18 months ago, we between us said we had a suspicion that it would be whoever's laid them had to stay on site.
yeah.
But anyway, sorry to jump in on that, Sean. But I
No.
do think that's a key thing that people have to bear in mind as well.
I believe the whole within sight and sound thing makes sense from an animal welfare point of view. And some people may consider that to be unfeasible and unworkable. But the whole point of this act was meant to be bought. The bill was brought forwards off the back of an animal welfare concern. And so with that, yes, to operate within sight and sound of the boards does make sense to that end. But it has fallen short of the mark somewhat. Sean, what are your views on this? Have you used glue boards before, Sean?
I've used them twice simply because I felt like I should use them rather than actually needed to use them, and they didn't work. We done the old rat stuck in a cupboard, put them down. To be fair, say we used them. One of the lads used them. He was trying to get the rat out the cupboard. It ran over the glue board 3 times and didn't get stuck. So what a waste of time. Was a bit cold, people say, but it wasn't, because it was like July. I think the reality of it is a rat traveling at high speed with 1 foot touching it probably isn't going to get stuck. It did eventually, but it wasn't that great. We don't do that type of work. All I would say is, if I was one of the big ones, Rento, Ecolab, whatever it is, I would be bouncing up and down with this legislation. I would be over the moon.
You say that because, and I've seen a couple of comments have come up saying, well, this just precludes small users from using them.
Yes.
And the rest of it. But the reality is, if you have a look at the things there, the actual cost of the licenses, it's not 1 license per company, it's 1 license per site and to it being used on. So
there's a point here, isn't it? It says 1 license for the whole of Rent-A-Kill, but I don't think that's true, because it says here, will only be issued for exceptional circumstances, blah blah blah. You register in advance. The license only covers very specific situations which are time critical. For me, if I was Rento or any of the big ones, I think it's dead easy. If you were a hospital now, you are getting that license every year. So you're going to charge them every year. Your contract's just jumped up another £1,000 to get that license, to do the paperwork and put it in place. Every place that has an aircraft that's going international is going to need to have one, in case you bring something over with vector diseases. Critical infrastructure. If you're looking after any sort of power plant, you're looking after any oil refinery, you're getting it done. Like, they're paying for that glue board treatment that they may never have, and that's just going straight on the top of the contract. If you don't want it, you don't get it. Don't complain, and they'll throw that £1,000 at you. So the big boys will be bouncing up and down at this. I've got no doubt about it. No doubt.
There's no reason that the smaller pest managers can't also apply by the same rules. It's just down to a level of negotiation.
You've got to be looking after these sites, though, haven't you? Because if you don't have anything with an aircraft, anything with a hospital surgery, or anything that's classed as critical infrastructure, you ain't getting it.
I know a couple of small pest managers who look after hospitals and bits and bobs. I know a couple of groups who band together and operate as conglomerate, you know, of folks.
Let's
And
be fair, they're a very small percentage of the small
Hmm.
guys, aren't they? You know, like if you are looking after any one of those sites, bounce up and down because you've just added £1,000 onto your thing for a treatment that might never happen, and then all of a sudden you've got a hospital surgery with a mouse. How much are you charging till that mouse is caught? There's 5-6 grand, isn't there? It's got to
I don't
be.
know. I'm not. The NHS can barely afford beds. I'm not sure they can afford that. But yes, no, I totally take your point, and it's all about how we frame this. But in reality, there's a lot more hurdles to this legislation than not. And in my opinion, the license could have been done significantly better in a way that would have both safeguarded human and animal health, whilst at the same time not being prohibitively prescriptive as to really stop their use by any other way. Do you guys have any other thoughts before I read? Because the BPCA got wind that we were going to be doing this podcast today and mentioning glue traps, and they actually sent a mission statement out of their views on it. But before I read that out, do you guys, you know?
There's been
Yeah,
a few. There's been a few comments come up, so I was just wondering if you wanted to address any of those,
Oh,
or
pick your favourites on that. If you've seen some that have caught your eye.
I mean, there's one specifically on there with regards the amateur purchasing
Who is it
them.
by?
Oh.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? And
Now, again, but not regulate the sale of them to the public. That's the one, Neil.
it does.
So again, that is if you look at the license, it specifies that all rodent traps should be purchased by a basis point of sale approved supplier. There's always going to be a black market, I think, for this type of thing. But yeah, because essentially that's the same as the legislation in Wales. The use is banned, but you can still actually buy them in Wales, which just seems interesting to say the least. But yeah, that is going to have to be policed. From what I gather, the MPTA, BPCA have got pretty good links with eBay, Amazon, places like that, and it's going to have to be a whistleblowing exercise. And I would urge people to do that, to be honest.
But before I give a bit more,
hang on a second, because that leaves me with a question for Darran, which I think will tie in together. Training. How does it end up, and I genuinely don't know the answer, that you can end up with one of the conditions that says a kill germ glue trap online training module 2024 version? How has it ended up with that being put into the law? Because that's like 2022, it was going forward. How has it ended up with one training manufacturer? And I understand it says other companies are welcome, blah, 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 but that seems like a massive overthought. And then how has it ended up with this? It's got to be, how basis ended up in a position to say you've got to buy it from someone that we say produces a glue board. Like, what? How has it ended up in that position? Because, like, does that not absolutely fucking boil your piss as a training publisher? Because that would really get me, especially if it's being put into legislation.
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is I don't think they're going to copy and paste that and put it into legislation. I think that that's probably been referenced, because I know that online training module has been visible for some time. We, as a training provider, as I'm sure others do, have the training there ready to go. But I would argue that kill germ course isn't ready to go yet, because it can't be. We don't know exactly how the license looks yet. So unless they've got a crystal ball or they've got a direct line to DEFRA, which I doubt, there's going to be a little bit of tweaking going on there. Yeah, absolutely. It is, the basis side of things, that's probably just linked directly with rodenticide. That's the rules around crew safe use of rodenticides basis. You have to be an approved point of sale. So that maybe just clawing that in from that side of things, maybe. But speculative on my part. That's all I can say, really.
So yeah, my question kind of fed into that, which was for a long time, the manufacturers and just well, not the manufacturers, but the distributors of the pest control products in the UK, and we're not talking internet resellers here like eBay and Amazon and the others. We're talking about the actual bricks and mortar on the ground distributors. Number one, you know, you've been doing checks and measures for a while that you have your level 2 or your level 2 safe use or above for the sale of rodenticides above pack sizes X, Y, and Z. And there's been a gentleman's agreement, hasn't there? It's not been a legislative thing, but it's a gentleman's agreement between all of the distributors that you will ensure that there has been a safe use of biocides or equivalent public health insects course undertaken before you sell insecticides. Although that's not legally required, I think
Exactly.
all of the major distributors have abided by this, and you all discuss with each other as to what constitutes as a sufficient level of training before that goes ahead. With that, is there a plan in place, you know, other than the basis point of sale? Is there a plan in place to check to make sure that the people buying from you have their tickets in place? I'm sure there is, but just to reaffirm people's thoughts.
Well, that was a question that I've asked to be put forward to DEFRA, because absolutely what we've got here is an audience of people that use the boards. But if we are referenced as a basis approved point of sale, and we are audited on an annual basis, which we are, to make sure we've got crew declarations and this, that, and the other, what information are we going to have to provide? You know, if they say Fred Blogg's Pest Control has taken, how many glue boards have they taken? Is that in breach of GDPR? How much information do we have to give them? How do we know that they've renewed their license? It seems like there could potentially be quite a lot of work on our side, but we're going to need some guidance on that. You know, I think it's fair to say that if the legislation looks anything like that, we will probably just be very close to just knocking them on the head, to be honest with you. I can't see many people purchasing them going forward, but yeah, there will be work to do in the background for us, absolutely. But as you say, with insecticide, I could sell a tub of Ficam D to anyone I want tomorrow. There's no restriction on the sale, it's on the use. You know, but we take it upon ourselves, as do, you know, I'm sure every other supplier, to almost police the industry. That's always kind of fallen on the distributors in many ways, to kind of police that. We're kind of that only line of defense, really. But
it's interesting you say police, because the strange thing about this now, and this is one of the few, in fact, this may be even one of the few, if not maybe the only one, where it's realistically, to misuse a glue board now is a criminal offence, because there is a specific bit of legislation that says do it this way or you're breaking the law. And so the funny thing is we've always had a bit of an issue in our industry before about who do you turn to do whistleblowing? Who do you turn to say that's being done wrong, or that's being done wrong? So with this, sorry,
I'm pretty sure that HSE have just employed 2 or 3 dozen people to wander around. It's more on the horticultural agricultural side, but to check the safe use of pesticides on that side of things. It's, for me, only going to be a matter of time before something similar might come into our industry, and they might take
I have no doubt.
Can I just ask, have either of you actually read the Glue Traps Offences Act of 2022? Because there's some
I have, because I had some input into the wording of that.
Well, hey, well done, Alex.
One of the working groups. No, some of the comments I had were.
If you are a pest controller and you are turning up in houses, you need to listen to this bit. A person commits an offence if the person finds a glue trap in England that has been set in a manner which gives rise to the risk that a rodent will become caught in the glue trap, and, without reasonable excuse, fails to ensure that the glue trap no longer gives rise to such a risk. Now, that is a horrible, horrible position to find yourself in.
I was literally about to bring this up, because this was one of the big concerns we had. And no, it's great that you brought it up and actually did it ad verbum, because I was going to paraphrase, which would not have done it any justice whatsoever. But yeah, this was one of the points that was raised at the time, which was that is a big old stick, isn't it? And that's a really terrifying thing, because, and I'm sure in the comments, people listening right now, we will have all turned up to sites where we have seen these glue traps being misused. And you know in your heart, this is the reason that this bit of legislation's come in, because of these situations. Now, the scary thing is just Sean's just said there, is that this Glue Trap Offences Act puts the burden of responsibility back onto the professional, onto the competent person. That if you find a glue trap, you can't just turn around, put your hands up in the air and walk away from it and say, I'm not touching this. You now have a duty of care. You now have a responsibility to make those traps safe. But as was pointed out in a meeting I was in the other day, that's a terrifying thought, because it means that potentially you have to start conflict with your client and say, you take these away. But DEFRA, I believe, has said that so long as you show that you have tried to make them safe, then and documented that you've done so, then that is it's unlikely that you are going to be brought, tarred with the same brush as someone outside of your company, outside of yourself, misusing them. However, as I was saying before, this is now a criminal case. So instead of, if you see the misuse and abuse and you see these things and they're not your client, or they're not your client anymore because of this, you can call the police. The police are now the policing factor of it. It's not phoning up BPCA or MPTA or Crew or DEFRA or Natural England or anything like that. If you see someone misusing and abusing a glue board, you can, in all rights, call the police, because it is a criminal act, and it does come with a fine, and it does come with the, if you, Sean, what's the custodial sentence attached to that? It's 6 months, isn't it?
Up to 51 weeks. Yeah.
Yep, 6
so
months.
that is, it's what we call a summary only offence. So there's two different levels. So summary only offence can be heard in a magistrate court. It's where you get up to 6 months in jail. And I think it's an unlimited fine now. It used to be £2,000 or something. And then over that, you get triable either way, magistrates thingy, and then you get Crown Court only offences. So this is a magistrates court offence that you would go to. The without reasonable excuse. For anybody there, if you walk into a house or a shop and they're going to kick off with you, I think it is absolutely reasonable excuse to turn around and say, I am not in a position to start a physical conflict with someone, and I am not the police. Because I can't think of another circumstance where anybody is put in a position where they say to them, if you don't stop this person from doing this, you commit the offence. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you see someone shoplifting and you do not tackle them to the floor, you're as guilty of shoplifting as them. That's rotten, that.
Yeah. And I think the thing we need to remember there is that that one sentence that you mentioned there, Sean, which is without, what was the exact terminology to that?
Reasonable excuse.
Yeah. And I think the reasonable excuse, and don't be proud here, guys. A reasonable excuse is, I didn't want to get knocked to the floor for the sake of folding up a couple of glue boards. But with that, you do have to make sure that you do document it for this. You need to make sure that you capture this information. As we mentioned in other podcasts before, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. This is why your treatment reports are so important. They are not just a record of what you've done, but a record of that. If you remove them, sure, that's technically theft. That's something I'm not going to get into.
Hang on a second, because this is quite interesting. He raises a very real point. You can't. Theft is to dishonestly appropriate another with the intention that you permanently deprive them of it. So if you take it away, then yes. If you fold that glue board up and put it on the side and you put it back down. But it's quite interesting because it says a court by which a person is convicted of an offence must order the person to forfeit any glue trap in the person's possession. So in order to take it off them, the court has to do that once they are convicted. So they're asking us to stop it, but we can't actually take them away from them. All we can do is fold them, put them on the side for them to unfold them and put them back. So and it does also raise a point here. There was a point, wasn't there? What does it say about non-glue boards, tubes of glue or something? Someone said, "Where's it?"
Yeah. Someone's calling it the Moby Moat, because it's not technically a board. It's
no, further down. Someone's asked about tubes of glue as well. Have they said anything about? Yeah.
I think that still falls underneath the glue trap offences order with that, because I think it
does. It says here in this act, a glue trap means a trap which uses an adhesive substance as the means or one of the means of capture. So all of them are encompassed. If you're sticking something together, it counts.
Should we have just a little statement from the BPCA? Because of course the BPCA and our trade associations have been lobbying. It's actually one of the few times that we have, as an industry, lobbied for this, and it's not necessarily. I have to, stress the point here. The lobbying has not been just for glue boards, because of course glue boards are a very small part of our industry, used by a very small proportion of our industry. The reason for this lobbying has been to protect our toolkit in general. It was to prevent there being a chink in that armor. Yes, Darren.
I was just going to say that you may or may not have caught wind of it, but I can't remember what states it was, but there were 1 or 2 Nordic states that were asking the same question around pheromone traps for moths a couple of 3 years back. I'm sure that would be my fear, is that someone says, well, moths have feelings too, as do cockroaches, and potentially where does it start? That would have put the fear of God into people. Absolutely not. But I know that was out there in the public domain. Check it out. People were questioning.
I do believe that there was
just question, but the fact that it was actually given airtime is of a concern.
But you only have to look at Amsterdam at the moment, and they are preaching that. Preaching is the wrong word, but they are advocating that we should live with rats as opposed to battle against them. We should accept the rats in our towns and cities because they're not that dangerous. House fires, spreading of disease, general distress and mayhem, but they're not. Okay,
that just sounds like Southend Seafront on a Friday night, mate. To be honest with you, it's spread of disease and house fires and general mayhem. But come on down to Southend on Sea, you'll love it.
We've all been to that particular party before, haven't we? But yeah, I actually saw a similar. It was not necessarily it was a case study or a thought experiment or whatever you say, a thought that came up, and it was along the lines of, are EFKs humane? Because of course the insects stick to them and they don't perish straight away. Of course they die as a result of exposure, dehydration, stress, etc., etc. And are they then considered humane? So yes, this whole lobbying process hasn't necessarily been around specifically glue boards. It's around protecting the toolkit as general, because the fear being that as soon as that first domino starts to fall, the others may well be, not far behind. So the need to look after glue boards extends beyond the need to look after glue boards, so to speak. It's the need to look after our toolkit. But BPCA, the trade associations, the Pest Management Alliance, all did a lot of work leading up to this, speaking to ministers, speaking to civil servants, speaking to a lot of people to try and steer both this act and this legislation in the right way. However, as you said before, there was an initial consultation done, what was it, 11 months ago or something like that? And then it didn't seem to get picked up again. There didn't seem to be another consultation. And then suddenly we have this. And so in reply to this, and I believe the BPCA is going to be putting a similar statement out in the wider media, not just the pest management media, the wider media next week. But along the lines of this. So Scott sent me this earlier today. The BPCA has some significant concerns over DEFRA's proposed glue board licensing scheme. Nearly a year ago, BPCA members sent DEFRA our thoughts on how to set up a workable licensing scheme that would protect public health and honour the legislation. Despite regularly checking in with DEFRA, it's been very quiet since then. It's clear that DEFRA and Natural England have missed the mark on glue board licenses. What is being proposed will potentially have a devastating effect on many businesses in the food supply chain, from small local food producers to supermarkets, pubs, restaurants, takeaways, and caterers, at any time when many of these businesses are struggling to survive. BPCA has always supported a public ban on the use of glue boards to alleviate the animal welfare concerns. But this week, we have written to the DEFRA Minister, Rebecca Powell, MP, and asked her to intervene. BPCA has engaged with the British Retail Consortium, UK Hospitality, and around a dozen other trade associations representing businesses involved in supplying food in an effort to try and get what is being proposed changed. There should have been much more consultation throughout the process of developing this scheme, and we have a comprehensive press plan to help apply pressure to the government should we need to do so. So there we go. That's what Scott sent me earlier on this week in relation to us having this conversation, and I think that's very fair. And I'm going to say when people ask, what have the Romans ever done for us? What have our trade associations ever done for us? I think this is a very good example of just that precise thing, which is, okay, glue boards, love them or hate them, they're a part of our toolkit, and this is what our trade associations are doing to try and protect that. So there we go. Thoughts on that, guys? I mean, that was quite something, wasn't it? Sorry, I managed to get through all of that without stuttering once.
Go on, Darren, it's your hour. Knock yourself out, young man. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's as you say, there's always, what the Romans ever done for us and this, that, and the other. But I think the BPCA and the MPTA and certain people within the pest control community are really trying here. Really, really are trying. I wonder if whoever proposed the motion would have, I don't know, had sought for this had a rat been running around their kitchen and been successfully caught on a glue board, maybe. I don't know. I don't see them as the answer to every pest problem, but I see them as a very, very useful tool in the right hands. Personally, that's my personal opinion. This license is ridiculous at the moment. To apply for a license, if you take some of the bird licenses you have to apply for, I mean, it's weeks. It can be weeks before you get a sign off and a letter. I think it's a shame, certainly in those like the food environments, the kitchen environments, school education. I know care homes and things like that are referenced, but in so many settings, used in conjunction with other measures responsibly, they do serve a purpose. And the only other option is everyone ignores it. But I don't think we can really go down that route. If everyone in Wales drove at 30 mile an hour when the 20 mile an hour signs went up, I don't know, but they've gone back on that. You never know; they might go back on this one. Who knows?
This is it, and you kind of make a point with that, which is we need to. So someone mentioned before, how can we comment? Well, you comment through your trade associations, because these are the guys bringing the fight forwards. And if you don't want to, comment to your trade associations because you're not affiliated with any of them, talk to your distributors, because all of the distributors also have channels into the trade associations, into these working groups where this is getting brought up. Don't just sit on your hands, because it's having just had election day yesterday, if you don't vote, then you can't complain when the result is something that you don't know.
And equally, even if it's not something you have ever used or particularly like the look of, because next time it could be a tool that isn't used by someone else but is used by yourself. And we are seeing the toolkit diminish at a rapid rate. And next time around, it might be, I don't know. Let's just pick a random example. It might be someone who does rural pest control, has never used a glue board, says, "Well, no, get rid of them. What's the point?" And then someone in a city loses that tool. Next time it could be for stoxing. You might use a lot of that, and then they go, hang about, aluminium phosphide, that's quite potent, that's quite dangerous, let's remove that. Someone in Bethnal Green doesn't use that. So as an industry, I think we should try and retain, because just because you don't use it or don't see the value, it doesn't mean that someone else doesn't. I think is fair to say.
So
I think
someone's
So I'm just reading the laws. Needs to be a combined effort with clear instructions on what to say and who to approach. So it would appear that there are two ways to deal with glue board offences. The first one is an officer can apply for a warrant and can enter any premises with the warrant in order to find evidence of an offence, etc., etc. Section 5 is an authorised inspector who is authorised by the Secretary of State. I don't know who that would be.
It would be EHO, wouldn't it?
Is that right? So it'd be EHO, right? Well, that's a bit naughty. But anyways, yeah. So may at any reasonable time enter and inspect premises other than a dwelling. So you can't do this on your home. So if you find it in a house, it doesn't make a difference. Occupied by any pest controller who is authorised by the glue trap licence for the purpose of verifying any statement, blah blah blah. So if you go to a commercial premises and there is glue boards down by a pest controller who is not dealing with them properly, then that is a whole separate way to deal with it than there is if you go to someone's house and they've got glue boards down. So one of them is you go and tell the police have to get a warrant, kick the front door in to go get a glue board out. And a commercial one with a pest controller, that inspector can literally walk into any non-dwelling and go and get the evidence and look for that prosecution against them. Again, it seems like we're going to get hit a lot harder than the amateurs. Like it, we're going to get whacked by that if you are slightly out on it. So be careful.
So let's move away from the doom and gloom here for a second, because I think this is going to be a bit. Darren, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to say, right, glue boards. One way or another, we can't use them. They've not been banned. We've successfully managed to say our piece. What do you recommend from your experience at 1EMV? How would you go about that? Where would you go if you were not to use a glue board? Because as we all know, there is a dozen ways to skin the proverbial here. And glue boards, although a useful tool, they're as you say, they're just part of an IPM. So where would you go with this if you were to do something else? Because we have options. We do have options.
We do have options, but I mean, glue boards are used in critical or should be used in critical situations where you need an immediate result within, seconds, minutes, and hours. So straight away, rodenticide proofing, everything's off the table. It leaves us with terriers, traps, that is it. I failed to see what else can deliver what we need it to deliver within that period of time. If glue boards are used correctly, and I'm not saying that everyone uses them correctly. Obviously, we know amateurs. The amateur sector don't. The amateur sector takes quite rightly a bit of a battering when it comes to glue boards, rodenticides, etc. We won't go into the amateur rodenticide side of things because we'll be here for another half hour. But have you ever bought weed killer, Alex? Alex, have you ever bought weed killer?
I wish I had. I hate my garden. I would nuke it to the floor. But right. I get your point. Yes.
And have you got your PA1 and PA6? No. So that's that argument done. But nevertheless, but what it needs is, glue board should be used in emergency call out. Let's go. Let's catch the rat that's on the shop floor or in the school or in the doctor's surgery. What other tool is there? It's glue boards. It's traps, sorry, or terriers. I can't really think of anything else other than chasing it out and or letting it go of its own accord.
And so I think this is why it's important that we do have a unified voice in the industry. Now, Tedster, and one day you are going to give us your real name, Tedster, makes a point. No, Alex. I mean, fair enough. That's a good way to start any conversation. But we need to write to Rebecca Powell direct. I would say yes, but with a caveat here, which is I have no doubt that after the BPCA has put out its statement, if they do need to take this any further forwards, what I'll recommend through the Outreach and Comms Committee and my position on the board is that they write us a template. They will write us a template where you can then sort of use that template. So we're not seen as a gaggle of squabbling children, but we're all speaking with one unified voice. And we use that template and we then send it on. And it all says the same message. We have the same voice. We have the same opinions. And so with that, there we go. And, send it by snail mail, fill the letterbox up. But hold off on that until we see what the strategy is going forwards. And who knows? I mean, we're coming up to an election soon. This all may very well change.
I could see us.
Sorry, Sean.
I could see us having some sort of template like environmental risk assessment to go in, tick your boxes, blah, blah, blah. Has this been tried? Has that been tried? Can you do this? Can you do that? Yes, no. Was it successful? I don't think it'll be a proper written application. It'll be more like an ERA for glue boards, one that you submit, I would think.
No, that absolutely. No, I don't disagree that that part of your due diligence and proving what you're doing. I was more referring to when we actually want to try and get this license amended to be a bit more reasonable, to reflect what it is that we do. Darren, you had thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I've recently managed to get a place on the newly formed BPCA technical committee, and we saw him, the chairman, the other day, and vice chair, and then this came up because the meeting was on Monday, and I think this hit the press Thursday last week, was it? And I know that the BPCA had an exec board meeting, I think, the last couple of days, and one of the things that yesterday, was it? Yeah, one of the things that I think they were pushing for, in conjunction with the other bodies, was initially some form of stay of execution, essentially, just to try and extend that a little. You know, if a rodenticide or an insecticide's coming off of the market, usually there's a period of time, minimum of 6 months, anywhere up to 18, within which to use up. So I think that was one of the things that was being pushed for as well, just to give us time to breathe and actually assess. But it's key, and I make you right that someone like, you know, we need to get something standardized out there, almost like a mini petition of some description, to make it easy but concise as well. I think that's the important thing. We don't need you know, war and peace to be delivered. We need something concise and quick. So if it does fall into your inbox, then please do complete and send that on. At least then, worst case, we can say we tried. So
exactly that. And I mean, to you know, not to continue labouring this point, but I will bring up, you know, I'm going. Richard Lamb, you know, who we all know and love, and tragically is no longer with us. He went to a lot of the early meetings on this, didn't he, Darren? And I think someone mentioned earlier on today, in some of the meetings that he went to, there was 4 respondents to the stuff that he brought up initially, and that was, you know, the level of apathy. I remember him telling me he was absolutely sort of like gobsmacked at the level of non-engagement, and we just can't let that go. We can't let that happen a second time.
No,
so yes, so there we go. Right. So I mean, we've managed to talk a full 40 minutes about glue boards now. Let's find something else, guys. In the questions, do we have any questions for Darren specifically that are not to do with the glue boards? Because he has a lot more to offer than just his thoughts on glue boards there. So while we wait for a couple of questions to come in for Darren on that, Darren, I mean, give us a rundown of I don't know. You say you're doing a lot of training at the moment. Go on, tell us what the most enjoyable bit of training is that you've been doing, because you've really got, you know, every time I speak to you, you're more and more passionate about delivering training, getting workshops on. So give us a couple of
I mean, my biggest thing, I'm really trying to drive, and this is also why I wanted to take a place on the technical committee with the BPCA as well, is to, you know, everyone says raise the standard of training and this, that, and the other, but really with a practical element to it. So, you know, this is a hands-on industry, and at the moment, the difference between a pest controller and a non-pest controller is a 3-hour exam. And I don't think that's right, personally. And I think the way the current setup is, it actually puts off a lot of people that are very, very good at what they do. I've mentioned earlier, my father-in-law's the best bricklayer you'll ever meet in your life. He's phenomenal. He'll do anything with brick cement. You stick him in a 3-hour exam, asking him the ins and outs, wouldn't have a clue. When I started with Richard in 2007, in August, I attended the RSPH Level 2 course in the November of that same year. And I passed with a distinction. And I'd never looked at a sprayer. I had never seen a rat. I had never walked around a site. But what I was able to do was read, understand a question and put it down, because luckily I've been quite academic through my life. You would not have ever given me a sprayer or a duster or a rat box or asked me to go and do a treatment report. It just so happened that I was able to answer those questions. So what we're trying to deliver now is practical training. So we do an environmental risk assessment and surveying day. I forget where that is actually, that practical course. Where is it, Alex?
It's down in Basingstoke, and I
Oh,
believe
right,
actually
okay.
there's going to be one happening over in the 1EMV offices as well.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a 2-day practical bird control course, which involves getting off the floor, actually installing stuff. We're doing practical insect control courses with actually getting your hands on the application equipment. We're really trying to drive more the practical side of things, and I just hope as an industry it goes more down that route, because you can sell the virtues and 100 PowerPoint slides on the importance of an environmental risk assessment, but if you say, right, we've done that bit, now let's go out and do one, that's what sticks in your head. I can talk to you for hours about calibrating a sprayer and what happened down in Bristol, Alex. 2 brand new sprayers out of the box, one of which delivered 100 mil of product in 15 seconds, and the other one 200 mil in 15 seconds. And I just want to get people thinking, and the place where I'm at is I've got a 5-year-old, soon to be 6, upstairs. I would like to think that the person that walked in my house to spray my house for bed bugs or to treat the rats in my house actually knew what spray, how to calibrate the sprayer, knew how to mix the product correctly, knew where to look for, appreciate the fact that I've got children, pets, etc., etc. And I think the best way to deliver that is not to be sat there looking at PowerPoint slide after PowerPoint slide, but actually get in, get up, and let's do it with people that have done it. And that's my drive. That's what I get passionate about, as you know. So
Yeah, I know that, and that's kind of why I edge you towards it, because it's such a, from my perspective, it's such a lovely thing to get passionate
mm,
about, is
mm,
being able to do this for the industry,
mm,
and not to mention the
mm,
fact it's taking that training, as you say, to a practical element, which so many of the folks listening to this, and
mm,
I know from speaking to you all at trade shows, on here, in person, just online, we are a practical industry. We learn
mm,
by doing, and for so long, I think we have been let down
mm.
by the traditional way of teaching, because it's the only way that we've really ever known.
But I also think as well that the current level 2, technically, if you read up the what the level 2 definition is actually, our current level 2 is actually the equivalent of a level 3, because level 2 is you do the same job day in and day out without variation. You look at one of the current level 2 papers, you've got questions on moles to dray poking to to pharaoh's ants, to this, that, and the other. That is level 3 content, and I think that there needs to be a step before that to be able to let someone go, or people should be recognized for actually what they are, and that is a lot better than what they think they are, I think is fair to
Yep,
say. And I massively push that, and I think we undersell ourselves as an industry
absolutely.
massively.
This is something that Karen Dawes, who's the training manager at the BPCI, has been saying for some time now, and she's been trying to build a framework for that, which is pest managers as they currently stand. If you do a level 2 in, an RSPH level 2, let's say in food hygiene, and level 2 award, which is the same as our level 2 award. So a level 2 award in food hygiene technically carries the same weight for the RSPH as our level 2 award in pest management. Only one of ours is a 5 days and 3-hour exam, and the other one is less than a day, and it's a multiple choice exam online at the end of your course. Now the thing is we, as far as the RSPH is concerned, those two qualifications are an equivalence.
Mm,
And they're clearly not. They are
yeah.
clearly not.
Mm,
And Karen
mm,
has been pushing for a while to say exactly
mm,
that actually the
mm,
majority of pest managers out there on the tools as it stands are closer to level 3 than they are to level 2 on that framework. And so what we
mm,
need to do is we need to basically give everyone the opportunity to cross that tiny last, 6 inches before we get to the finish line, to all be called level 3. And at that point, we're level 3. We have a lot more
yeah.
respect, because that would be like you not knowing better, turning up to a school and saying proudly and loudly, turning up to a lecture theatre, knowing the material, but turning up and saying, "Don't you know I've got 3 GCSEs?" And they turn
Mm,
around and say, "Well, this is a this is a university level lecture on rats and mice." And you say, "Well, I know all that already." And they say, "Well, you've only got, on paper, you've only got 3 GCSEs. No, actually, we need to be recognized for the level of knowledge and skill that we have." And that's precisely what you're saying. And I think
mm,
precisely what Karen's trying to do. And the great thing about that is apprenticeships start at a level 3 as well. So it means
yeah.
suddenly it opens up that door and that framework. So yeah, absolutely in there. Now there was a couple of questions that came in, and one of them, and it's going to be cheeky, but I'm going to love to see how you answer this. How does one of you manage to be a little bit cheaper than the others? Kind of, how do you do it? Do you take a scoop out of every bucket just to make a fourth bucket down the line? I mean, how do you do it?
Have you got cameras on us? No, I think you know we've bought a lot of manufacture in house, which helps. One of the reasons why we moved into a bigger facility, a couple of reasons, but some of it was space, and you know, without wishing, I'm not going to go into it, but the Brexit, COVID side of things, last minute ordering, etc., we wanted to increase our sort of order levels, should we say, to reduce the amount of orders that we get. We, you know, and able to stock some. I don't think our prices have gone down. We just haven't maybe nudged them up as much potentially. But yeah, it's a very, very awkward question to answer that, particularly without my financial director sat to my side. But yeah,
Don't worry, he's listening. You'll hear about it on Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think we do offer a good range. You know, we offer a lot of traditional. We offer a lot of products that we've actually brought to market as well. So you know, that product there, I'll hide the actual name of it, you know, is going to be the same in most people's catalogue. But what we have is something similar that maybe, you know, is of equivalence. And you know, but yeah, I don't want to give away too many secrets because I want to be copying. So
well, I mean, the thing you can probably talk about, and I know for a fact that Richard is very proud of, is your absolute sort of, like, you've got an entire wing of your warehouse, which is all of your blow molding machines, isn't it? All of your boxes are made in-house by, and again, this is something that you're proud of, is your you know, it's all, the majority of it is recycled materials, high grade recycled plastics. So number one, you make them all yourself in-house from materials sourced from the UK, you know, and that your carbon costs, I think I've seen you give a couple of lectures now on the carbon savings for, you know, simply buying and using your boxes are phenomenal compared to boxes bought from outside the UK.
And it's you know, it's so the plastic is taken from the automotive industry, so car bumpers, dashboards, things like that would be going to landfill. So straight away we've taken that. It's then reground, reprocessed, and then molded into not just boxes. It's literally everything from wrap boxes, mouse boxes, inset monitors, keys, dividers, moth hangers, bait stars. You know, pretty much every bit of plastic that comes out of our place. All of the black plastic is recycled. Any colours are not recycled. You need to have virgin polymer. And for every kilo that comes out, it saves 0.97 kilos of CO2. And I think last year it was about 370 cubic ton of CO2 saved just in the manufacturing side alone. Doesn't include the footprint from, you know, carbon from imports and such like. But we've also got one of our roofs kitted out now with solar panels, which on a sunny day might give us 20% of our power. The plan is to extend that, so we're then using recycled plastic with renewable energy that we're harnessing ourselves. So yeah, every bit of cardboard in our warehouse is 80% recycled and 100% recyclable. You can't have 100% recycled. You need that rigidity in the box. You need the coating, because if the box is just disintegrate in transit, what you've saved by having a recycled box, you lose by having to resend it out because it's just everywhere. So yeah, lots of innovations. You know, we try and align ourselves with you know, as much as possible with UK manufacturers as well, such as, you know, Pelgar and such like, amongst many others. So yeah, we're just really trying to do our bit. Essentially, there's always more can be done. That's what we're aiming for. So.
Yeah. There's one question that's come up, and I feel we're going to push this a little over time here, but I'm willing to do this because there's two things I want to bring up. That's number one. Well done, Sean. That's exactly what I wanted to bring up. And I think you had your eye on that for a little bit as well. So for those who are listening back on Spotify, Fish for London has asked, do you feel that you have seen an increase in the sales of traps versus rodenticides as more pressure has been put on, or more products have been removed from the rodenticide market, more pressure has been put on rodenticides?
I think
so have you guys seen that?
when stewardship was first came out, everyone thought, well, that's it. You know, they want to stop using rodenticides. I think actually, if you drill into rodenticide stewardship, it's not saying don't use it. It's saying if you are using it, use it properly. Don't stick it in a box, bugger off for 6 weeks, and then come back. You got to come back within a week, 10 days. People going back to boxes in a week, 10 days, and they were empty. Oh, bloody hell, better put a bit more bait in there. Our bait sales actually went up because people were using it properly. You know, so we have seen, you know, we're a growing company. It's quite hard to gauge exactly how much of the rodenticide sale has increased because of us growing as a company or people are using it more. But the same on traps. You know, I think people are thinking more and are trapping more externally, for example, and are trapping more in certain places. But I think that rodenticide sales, I would imagine, probably increased because people weren't doing 8 visits a year anymore. You know, when they were told you actually have to go back a bit more often, and topping it up, more bait was actually going down. So yeah, that's what I've found from the distribution side anyway.
I mean, that's quite. I like that. That's a the success story on both sides, and I think we had Alan on a couple of weeks ago. He'll be pleased to know that actually there's been an impact in how people have approached pest management from the back of stewardship.
I mean, we know where that 6 weekly visit came from. You know, we all know where that came from, and it was something the industry adopted.
Where did it come from?
Wasn't it? You know, I don't know, but I think we possibly have a suspicion. But it's something the industry adopted, and that just became habitual. But you know, it's one of the first things I say when I deliver the safe use of rodenticides. An empty rat box with rats running around it is no use to anyone. It's as simple as that. So, you know, it's quite right. And, you know, I challenge people, if you had rats in your back garden, firstly, would you use rodenticide? No. But if you did, would you just put bait in it and leave it for 6 weeks before going and have a look in it? Absolutely not. So, you know, I always think from a pest, like actually conducting pest control perspective, I always try and get people to start, right, it's my house or my business, what would I do? And the closer you can get to that, the safer and the more efficient that treatment's going to be, in my opinion, anyway, for what it's worth. Easy for me to say, sat in an office.
Yeah, right, with your piano ready to play behind you. But no, I think that's really good philosophy. Oh, Sean, you're going to go there. You're going to go. Go on, you can read this one out. I'm not taking responsibility.
Oh, you'll read them out.
Where
would you put one ENV on a scale with the other suppliers in supply levels?
Oh, blimey, that's a good question. To be honest with you, I have a suspicion we are probably about second in if there was a league table. It depends what we're being measured against. What I tend not to do, and this is, I think, the mistake that could be pointed at one or two people historically, is I try not to worry too much about what other suppliers are doing. I just think if my ship's in order and my customers are happy with what I'm delivering, even if it's a couple of pence more expensive or whatever it may be, the rest will take care of itself. I know that, you know, that there might be a desire to, you know, try and find, but I don't really care, to be honest. You know, as head of sales for One ENV and the technical side of things, provided my sales are doing that, I'm quite happy with that. So that is a very political reply to that, isn't it?
It is a very political reply, and I'm going to basically, you know, make you squirm a little bit here, but the ethos.
Go on.
Say what? But I mean, the ethos between where you started in, you know, where Essex started in the late 90s, early noughties, and where One ENV is today is worlds apart. And I think Richard would probably scowl at me, but forgive me saying that originally it was very much Essex was stack it high, sell it cheap to begin with, and that was kind of not that bad, but in the very early days of Essex, it was a little bit along those lines. But
had to make an
from
impact.
the rebranding,
Had to make an impact. Yeah.
had to make an impact. But with the rebranding to 1EMV, the ethos, I feel personally, and others may argue differently from that, has really shifted. Has really shifted away from that attitude to actually one of support, technical knowledge, and the rest of it. And I think you guys should be tremendously proud of that culture shift that you've done.
Yeah, I do think for a long time we weren't in that conversation, because the perception, at least, was what your arguably right or wrong perception was there, that we were there to sell a few boxes cheap and sell a bit of this, that, and the other. We weren't in the technical conversation. And I think I remember having the chat with you. It must have been 5-6 years ago, when I was given a bit more responsibility on the trading side. I want us to be in that conversation. I'm not saying it's a conversation that can only be had with us. There are a lot of very, very clever people in this industry with huge amounts of experience, but I didn't want our customers or potential customers to think that they couldn't come to us because we didn't know what we were doing, if you know what I mean. And thankfully we're in a lot more of these conversations now, and and I'm thankful for that. And I think I think we're trusted. I think we always have been, but I think we're trusted to deliver honest advice. If I give an answer to a question, it might not always be the answer you want to hear, but it's the answer I think that is as accurate as possible, essentially. But yeah.
So as we draw to a close now, last one while we get into the comments, and this is one that Hugh snuck into the banners earlier on. So this is the first time I think that either Sean or I have seen it. But just while we,
I wrote it, Alex.
You wrote it. You wrote it, did you? Okay. So while we prepare to ask Darran the final 3 questions of the night, I would be ever so grateful if in the comments you could vote to see if Darran is either a beauty or a beastie, please. And we'll exactly that. Your face says it all. Absolutely there. But while we do this last little bit, just let us know. We'll get him a t-shirt printed with whatever you guys ultimately vote for with that. So with that, do you want to start, or should I start, Sean, for the final 3 for the countdown?
No, so the first thing I was going to say is, if you're looking for trainers, we've had a few on here, haven't we? With Davy Brown, John Sade, Alex. We've had some good guests on here who offer training. If any of them are watching, feel free to reach out. I'm sure there's thingy there, but the first one is, and I can never remember the order of these. Have you enjoyed your time on the podcast, Darran?
I have, thank you. I have waffled a bit, so I do apologise. But yeah, I have. Thank you very much.
There we go. He's already told us he's a beastie in his surname. Yeah, actually, I think that was a foregone conclusion, wasn't it? There, you are by de facto probably the beastie going on there. But no, I'm glad you've enjoyed yourself. It's not quite so harrowing. I think a lot of people get a little bit nervous about coming onto these things, and sometimes you talk to folks, and at the last minute they step back because they think it's going to be terrifying. So we always ask, and people always say they thoroughly enjoy it. But I will ask my one now, which is, please give us your 1EMV shameless plug, the thing that you think everyone should go out and buy or do, or if you could ask the entire pest management community to do one thing tonight or next week, what would it be? What would be that shameless plug?
Darran, hang on a second. If you see a bait storm, switching you off.
I second that.
Sorry, Alex. No, BASF don't make them. No, I would say there's been a lot of talk tonight about things that have gone off or been removed from the market. Alpha cypermethrin is back. So we've got Alpha Sect on the shelf ready to go. Fendona's on its way back soon as well. Quite refreshing to have something come back in to circulation. So give us a shout on that. Alpha cypermethrin, as I'm sure Alex will agree, is a pretty decent killing agent. So if you remember the old Stingray, Simitrol, Fendona, Alpha Most Super 6, Alpha Most Plus Z9, etc., there we are. That's tapping back. Then please give that a whirl. Give that a whirl. It's very good ingredient.
Quite amazing, wasn't it, at one time, because it was only one company that owned the intellectual property to alpha cypermethrin, and they gave letters of access to pretty much anyone who wanted them. It was given out like candy. And then suddenly one day, with very little warning, they turned around and said, no, we don't actually want to let you have letters of access anymore. It's all gone. And so suddenly everyone had to scrabble, and we started to see a lot more delta methrins and cypermethrins and other methrins coming out. And it was a shame, because alpha, it was a market leader for a reason. It was good. It was good. Now, arguably, a lot of the products that have come out as well to get around the removal of it have paved their own way. But I'm really pleased to see that there is an alpha cyper coming back, because it was a fantastic little molecule that was very easy to formulate. You can make it, well, suspension concentrates, for example, which are very good products. They've got a very good profile on a lot of different surfaces. So yeah, pleased to see that. Glad that that is your shameless plug. Have a look at that, guys, because that's a good one to have back on the tools.
That's probably, to be fair, that's probably a podcast in its own right, that then, isn't it? Yeah. Oh,
shame we left that to the end, wasn't it?
No, it's just got, he's done that on purpose, you see, to get himself back on. So there you go. That's how much he's enjoyed his time on the show. But can't have you on next week, and we have some guests booked up, but we do have spaces for others. So who would you like to see on the podcast?
Well, blimey. Do you know who I'd like to see, actually, thinking about it? I know you know, Alex. I'm not sure if you do, Sean, but Paula Kearns.
Oh, Paula's lovely. I think she'd be great.
30, 35, 40-year veteran of Deadline, but she is just one of the nicest people in this industry. That a lot of people would have seen at trade shows, exhibitions and things. And I think it would be really nice to get to know her. Make sure she's got a little booster seat for whatever she's sitting on. Obviously.
Watch yourself. She is small but mighty. She will have you.
Absolutely.
Yes. For those who haven't met, well, for those who don't know who we're talking about, Paula, you absolutely know. If you've ever been to a regional event where Deadline have had a stall, if you've ever been to any of the trade shows, if you've ever seen Jim Kirk lumbering in the distance, that petite blonde beautiful lady behind him is Paula, and she has stopped that man from self-annihilating himself so many times, hasn't she? She's the reason he's upright and walking most of the days, to be fair. She's had one job, which is her proper day job, and I think the other job, which is stopping Jim getting into all kinds of trouble. So
yeah, I think it would be nice to get her on. She's got some stories, so yeah.
Absolutely. I'll ask her. I'm sure it's not going to be too long before I see her. So definitely we'll see if we can get Paula on, because that would be wonderful. So there we go. Darran, thank you ever so much. There's I'm sure there's always sort of like love coming in from the comments here, and people have enjoyed listening to this today. I think it's been fairly engaging. We asked you to do a big thing today, which was to talk about a subject which is, as you say, very divisive, prone to sort of like wild misinterpretation, and can be very sort of like a sticky subject. So thank you ever so much for actually wading in and talking about this. I think a lot of other people would have just turned around and just said, you know what, no, not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So a tremendous amount of respect to you to actually coming on and standing up in front of people and being able to talk about that. So yeah,
anytime, literally, chaps, anytime. If ever you get anyone call out or drop out, then give us a shout. I'm sure they wouldn't, because you're too fabulous. Next time I might sing next time. But
is that the hope to get you back on?
Yeah, I just want to say, we've got a couple of people, haven't we, who would, and it's lovely to have that offer, that if people are needed, that they're there. A lot of what people don't see behind the scenes is there's always pressure on trying to get people organised, and just to have that offer there, I know it means a lot to me, Lex, and especially Hugh. Hugh gets missed on a lot of this, but he does most of the work Monday to Friday, we've got to be honest, and he's awesome. So thank you an awful lot for that. Worries. We'll probably call it in.
Yeah, we're not letting you off that. You've said it now on a public forum. It's been
Mm.
recorded. In a court of law, you have to do this now.
Well, I
so there we
can't.
go.
I mean, Friday week after next, I can't because I'm Frank Spencer that night. So yeah. So unfortunately, you'll have to write me out of the diary.
You know what? I might just ask you to sort of like just leave a phone propped up on the side so we can just periodically dip in and out, just bring you on and off from the call at the side.
I
So just
wondered where that was going for a moment there, Alex. But anyway, nevertheless, we'll draw a discreet veil over that. Thank you.
Was that Mrs. Paul Betty? Is that right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. Yes.
Fucking hell.
I think we need to see.
You are old.
We are all old. Darran, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you
My
ever
pleasure.
so much. You've been fantastic.
No worries
and
at
thank
all.
you ever so much.
Thank you.
So that's goodbye from me.
Cheerio, guys. Thanks ever so much. Have a good weekend.